Stop. Before you watch this video, I want you to do something. Next time you're at a store, pick up any bottle of medicine, any tube of toothpaste, any packaged food product. Look at the top. See that plastic seal? That safety wrapper? That tamper-evident cap? Now imagine a world where none of that existed, where anyone could open a product, do anything to it, and put it back on the shelf. Where you had no way of knowing if what you were about to consume was safe. That was America in 1982. And then, in the fall of that year, someone did exactly that. They walked into regular stores in Chicago, took bottles of Tylenol off the shelf, poisoned them with cyanide, and put them back. 7 innocent people died. The killer was never caught. This is the story of the Tylenol Murders, the unsolved case that changed every product you'll ever buy for the rest of your life. September 29, 1982. Elk Grove Village, Illinois. A quiet suburb northwest of Chicago. 12-year-old Mary Kellerman wakes up that morning with a sore throat and a runny nose. Nothing serious, just the start of a cold. Her parents, Dennis and Gina Kellerman, do what millions of parents did every single day. They go to the medicine cabinet and give their daughter extra-strength Tylenol. The most trusted pain reliever in America. The brand that every family had in their home. Mary takes the capsule, goes back to her room, and lies down. Within an hour, her parents hear a thud. They rush to her room and find Mary collapsed on the floor, unconscious. They call 911 immediately. Paramedics arrive within minutes, but it's already too late. By the time they reach the hospital, 12-year-old Mary Kellerman is pronounced dead. The doctors are baffled. A healthy 12-year-old girl doesn't just die from a common cold. They suspect maybe an extreme allergic reaction, a brain aneurysm, something sudden and catastrophic. But they don't know what. Not yet. That same day, just a few miles away in Arlington Heights, 27-year-old Adam Janis is at home recovering from minor back surgery. He's in some discomfort, nothing major, so he goes to his bathroom cabinet and takes 2 extra-strength Tylenol capsules. Within hours, Adam collapses in his home. His family calls paramedics. He's rushed to Northwest Community Hospital, the same hospital where Mary Kellerman had been pronounced dead just hours earlier. Adam Janis dies that afternoon. Now, 2 sudden, unexplained deaths in the same area on the same day. That's unusual, but not yet a pattern. Chicago is a big city. Sometimes coincidences happen. The medical examiners are puzzled, but they're not panicking. Not yet, but then, something happens that turns this from a medical mystery into something far more sinister. Adam's family gathers at his home to grieve. His younger brother Stanley is there, devastated. Stanley's new wife, Teresa, only 19 years old and married for just 3 months, is there trying to comfort the family. The shock and stress of losing Adam so suddenly gives both Stanley and Teresa severe headaches. Someone in the family says, "There's Tylenol in the bathroom cabinet." Stanley and Teresa both take capsules from the same bottle that killed Adam. Within hours, both of them collapse. Both are rushed to the hospital. Both are pronounced dead by the end of the day. 3 members of the same family, dead within 24 hours. All after taking Tylenol. Now the medical examiners know something is very, very wrong. This isn't coincidence. This isn't a medical anomaly. This is something else entirely. And it's about to get worse. September 30th. The next morning, the medical examiner's office in Cook County is in crisis mode. Dr. Thomas Kim, one of the deputy medical examiners, is working on the Janis family cases when something catches his attention. He notices an unusual smell during the autopsy, a bitter almond scent that experienced medical examiners recognize. Immediately, cyanide. Dr. Kim orders emergency toxicology tests. The results come back fast. All 3 Janis family members had lethal levels of potassium cyanide in their systems. Not trace amounts. Massive doses. Enough to kill within minutes. But here's the terrifying part, none of them had access to cyanide. They weren't chemists. They didn't work in industrial plants. They were regular people taking regular medicine from regular stores. The only common factor was the Tylenol. Dr. Kim immediately calls the police and the FDA. He tells them, "Test the Tylenol bottles. Test them now." Investigators rush to the Janis home and retrieve the bottle of extra-strength Tylenol from the bathroom cabinet. They carefully open it and begin examining the capsules under laboratory conditions. What they find is absolutely chilling. Someone had opened these capsules, the kind that are made of two pieces of gelatin that snap together, and replaced the white Tylenol powder with pure potassium cyanide. Then they'd snapped the capsules back together and returned them to the bottle. To the naked eye, they looked completely normal, but each capsule contained approximately 65 milligrams of cyanide. For context, just 5 to 7 milligrams of cyanide can kill an adult human. These capsules had more than 10 times the lethal dose. Taking one of these pills meant you had minutes to live, maybe seconds. But the investigation is just beginning, because Mary Kellerman, the 12-year-old girl who died that morning, had also taken Tylenol. Investigators rushed to the Kellerman home and retrieved that bottle as well. Same thing. Cyanide-laced capsules. 2 different stores. 2 different bottles. 2 different manufacturing lots. Someone hadn't tampered with the medicine at the factory. They'd done this at the retail level. They'd gone into stores, taken bottles off the shelf, poisoned them right there in the aisles or in a bathroom or parking lot, and then put them back. And if they'd done it twice, how many other bottles were out there? Police immediately issue a public warning. Local news channels break into regular programming with emergency broadcasts. Do not take Tylenol. If you have extra-strength Tylenol capsules in your home, do not take them. Bring them to your local police station immediately. But the warning comes too late. On September 29th, the same day as Mary Kellerman and the Janis family, 3 more people had already taken poison Tylenol. Mary Reiner, 27 years old, recently returned from her honeymoon. She had a headache. She took Tylenol. She collapsed and died. Paula Prince, 35 years old, a United Airlines flight attendant. She had just returned from a trip. She had a headache. She bought a bottle of Tylenol at a Walgreens, went home, took 2 capsules, and collapsed. Her body wasn't discovered for 2 days. Mary McFarland, 31 years old, worked at a store in Elmhurst. She took Tylenol for a headache during her shift. She collapsed in the store and died. 7 people, 7 innocent victims, all dead within 3 days. All from taking Tylenol they thought was safe. And whoever did this was still out there. October 1, 1982. The FBI is now involved. The Chicago Police Department has mobilized every available detective. Johnson & Johnson, the company that manufactures Tylenol, is in full crisis mode. And the entire nation is terrified. James Burke, the CEO of Johnson & Johnson, makes a decision that would become a legendary case study in corporate crisis management. He immediately orders a nationwide recall of every single bottle of Tylenol capsules, 31 million bottles worth approximately $100 million. Think about that. $100 million in 1982. That's over $300 million in today's money. And Burke ordered the recall before anyone even asked him to. He went on television and told the American public, "Do not take Tylenol capsules. We don't know how many bottles have been tampered with. Your safety is more important than our profits." It was the right thing to do. But it also meant that Tylenol, which had 35% of the pain reliever market, was about to lose everything. Meanwhile, investigators are racing against time. They're pulling Tylenol bottles from every store in the Chicago area. They're testing thousands of capsules. And they find more poisoned bottles, at least 3 additional contaminated bottles that hadn't killed anyone yet, but easily could have. The FBI creates a task force of 140 agents. They interview hundreds of people. They follow thousands of leads. They're looking for anyone who bought cyanide recently, anyone with a grudge against Johnson & Johnson, anyone who made threats or suspicious statements. And the leads go everywhere. They investigate disgruntled employees. They investigate pharmaceutical competitors. They investigate random copycat theorists. They chase down every call, every tip, every rumor. But they can't find the killer. What makes this case so difficult is the method. The killer didn't need to break into a factory or warehouse. They didn't need security clearance or special access. They just needed to walk into a store, grab a bottle, take it to a bathroom or their car, open the capsules, fill them with cyanide, and return the bottle to the shelf. It could have taken 5 minutes, maybe less. And in 1982, nobody was watching for that. There were no security cameras in store aisles. No tamper-evident seals. No safety packaging. The bottles just had regular caps that anyone could open and close. The killer had identified a weakness in the entire consumer product system, and they'd exploited it perfectly. But then, a break in the case. Maybe. On October 6, a letter arrives at Johnson & Johnson headquarters. It's from a man named James William Lewis. The letter demands $1 million to stop the killing. It gives specific instructions for the money drop and warns that more people will die if the demand isn't met. The FBI traces the letter to James Lewis, a man living in New York City with a criminal history and financial problems. They find him, arrest him, and charge him with extortion. But here's where it gets complicated. Lewis claims he didn't kill anyone. He says he just saw an opportunity to extort money from a company in crisis. He admits to writing the letter, but insists he had nothing to do with the murders. And investigators can't prove otherwise. They can't place Lewis in Chicago during the murders. They can't find any physical evidence connecting him to the poisoned bottles. They can't find cyanide in his possession or prove he ever purchased any. James Lewis is convicted of extortion and serves 13 years in prison. But he's never charged with the Tylenol murders. And until his death in 2023, he maintained he had nothing to do with the killings. The investigation continues. Another suspect emerges, Roger Arnold, a man who worked at a store and allegedly made suspicious statements about the murders. An amateur investigator becomes obsessed with Arnold and convinced he's the killer. But it turns out Arnold had nothing to do with it either. The accusations ruined his life anyway. Months pass. Then years. Then decades. The FBI follows thousands of leads. They investigate dozens of suspects. They use the most advanced forensic technology available. But they never find the Tylenol killer. The case goes cold. But even though the killer was never found, the Tylenol murders changed the world in ways that are still visible today, literally every single day of your life. First, the immediate aftermath. The poisonings triggered a wave of copycat incidents across the country. In the weeks and months following the Chicago murders, there were hundreds of reports of tampered products. Eye drops. Food products. Other medications. Most were hoaxes, people trying to get attention or file false insurance claims. But some were real. The entire nation was paranoid. People were afraid to take medicine. Parents were terrified to give their children anything from a bottle. The simple act of taking a pain reliever, something millions of Americans did every day without thinking, had become potentially deadly. Something had to change. Congress moved fast. In 1983, they passed the Federal Anti-Tampering Act, making it a federal crime to tamper with consumer products. The penalties were severe, up to life in prison for tampering that results in death. President Reagan signed it into law, and suddenly, product tampering went from a local crime to a federal offense investigated by the FBI. But laws alone weren't enough. The products themselves needed to change. Johnson & Johnson led the way. When they brought Tylenol back to the market in November 1982, they introduced something revolutionary: triple-seal tamper-resistant packaging. First, a sealed box. Second, a plastic seal around the bottle cap. Third, a foil seal under the cap. It was the first time a major consumer product had this level of protection. And it worked. Consumers slowly began to trust Tylenol again. Within a year, the brand had recovered most of its market share, a comeback that's still studied in business schools today as one of the greatest examples of crisis management in corporate history. But the impact went far beyond Tylenol. Look at any product in your home right now. Medicine bottles have safety caps and inner seals. Food jars have buttons on the lids that pop when you open them for the first time. Shrink wrap seals cover the caps of drinks. Those plastic rings around the necks of bottles. The sealed packaging on everything from vitamins to cosmetics to baby food. None of that existed before 1982. The Tylenol murders created an entire industry of tamper-evident packaging. Companies spent billions of dollars redesigning their products. Manufacturers developed new technologies specifically to make products harder to tamper with. The FDA created new regulations requiring tamper-resistant packaging for over-the-counter drugs. One unsolved crime changed how every consumer product in the world is packaged and sold. And for the families of the victims? They've lived with unanswered questions for over 40 years. Dennis and Gina Kellerman, who lost their 12-year-old daughter Mary, became advocates for product safety laws. They wanted to ensure that no other family would experience what they went through. The Janus family lost 3 members in a single day, a tragedy almost impossible to comprehend. These families deserved justice. They deserved answers. They deserved to know why their loved ones were targeted, why someone would do something so random and cruel. But they never got those answers. The case remains officially open with the FBI, but with the prime suspects now deceased and the trail decades cold, it's unlikely anyone will ever be charged. So what really happened? Who killed 7 innocent people and got away with it? Over the years, investigators and true crime researchers have developed several theories. Theory 1, James Lewis, despite his denials, was actually the killer. Supporters of this theory point to his extortion letter. Why would someone unconnected to the murders try to profit from them so quickly? Lewis had financial problems and a criminal history. Maybe he thought he could commit the perfect crime and get paid for stopping it. But investigators could never place him in Chicago at the right time or find any physical evidence. Theory 2, it was someone with a personal grudge against one specific victim, and the other deaths were meant to disguise the real target. This is a common theory in poisoning cases: kill multiple random people to hide the fact that you were really only after one person. But investigators couldn't find any connections between the victims or anyone who would have wanted all of them dead. Theory 3, it was a completely random act of domestic terrorism by someone who wanted to create chaos and fear. No specific target. No personal motive. Just someone who wanted to prove they could kill people and get away with it. This is perhaps the most disturbing theory because it means the killer could have been anyone, anywhere, with no connection to the victims at all. Theory 4, it was someone who worked in or near the stores where the poisoned bottles were sold. They had regular access, knew the layout, could have easily tampered with the products without drawing attention. But investigators checked employees at all the relevant stores and found no evidence. The truth is, we may never know. What we do know is this: the Tylenol murders represent a specific type of crime that's almost impossible to solve: random product tampering with no direct connection between the perpetrator and the victims. The killer didn't need to enter the victims' homes. Didn't need to confront them face to face. Didn't need to leave behind the usual evidence that connects criminals to their crimes: fingerprints in a home, witnesses who saw them near the scene, or relationship that provides motive. They just needed a few bottles, some cyanide, and access to store shelves. In some ways, the Tylenol killer was ahead of their time in the worst possible way. They understood that in a consumer society, people trust products implicitly. We trust that what we buy from a store is safe. We trust that the medicine we give our children won't harm them. We trust that companies and regulations protect us. The Tylenol killer shattered that trust. And even though tamper-evident packaging has made that type of crime much harder to commit, the psychological impact remains. The Tylenol murders taught an entire generation that danger can come from the most ordinary, trusted sources. The Tylenol murders remain one of the most significant unsolved cases in American history, not just because of the mystery, but because of the impact. 7 people lost their lives: Mary Kellerman, 12 years old. Adam Janus, 27. Stanley Janus, 25. Teresa Janus, 19. Mary Reiner, 27. Mary McFarland, 31. And Paula Prince, 35. They were parents, siblings, newlyweds, daughters, sons. They had their whole lives ahead of them. And they died because they did something we all do every single day: they took medicine they trusted to make them feel better. The killer was never caught. Justice was never served. But their deaths weren't meaningless. The changes that came from this tragedy have protected millions of people. Every time you open a sealed bottle, every time you hear that safety button pop on a jar lid, every time you peel away a tamper-evident seal, you're seeing the legacy of the Tylenol murders. It's a reminder that sometimes society only changes after tragedy. That sometimes it takes the worst crimes to create the best protections. And that even when justice fails, we can still honor victims by making sure what happened to them never happens again. The FBI still considers this case open. If you have any information about the Tylenol murders, you can contact them through their website. After 40 years, it's unlikely anyone will ever be caught. But the families of the victims deserve closure. They deserve to know the truth. If this video taught you something you didn't know, hit that like button. If you want to see more unsolved mysteries and true crime cases that changed history, subscribe to the channel. And let me know in the comments, what's your theory about who did it? Thanks for watching. And next time you open a bottle of medicine, remember the 7 people who died so that safety seal could exist. Stay safe out there.